What if Mao Zedong returned today? The CCP would welcome Mao back to the country, and we would quickly place him as our leader. Mao would mobilize the Red Army and prepare China for war. He would quickly take over Taiwan, angering the capitalists of the West, who would then declare war. However, our glorious leader wouldn't wait around and would strike Japan. The Japanese forces wouldn't be ready, and they would quickly fall. South Korea would now be completely surrounded, and Mao would liberate the people there. Chairman Mao would then focus on securing the South China Sea, launching attacks on Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia. The Red Army would begin to destroy these countries, but the US would slow them down. With Mao distracted, the US would try to liberate Japan. However, Mao anticipated this and would destroy the US soldiers stationed there. With the South China Sea secured, Chairman Mao would decide to destroy the capitalist oppressors in America and would send a surprise naval invasion to the US. Their entire US army would come to stop us, and the final battle would begin. What if Mao...
I mean, it's a bit of hopium, but I enjoy the sentiment. Because Mao is a giga-chad, okay? W Mao, baby. I wouldn't say that humans are addicted to war, Daria. But I understand what you're saying, like... And I'm not trying to be pedantic by calling you out on that. I'm just saying that I think the ruling class loves war. I think people love peaceful reformation. I just think it's because the ruling class violently resists peaceful reformation. That is why violence persists. Yeah, Mao was a giga-chad, okay? You can't deny that. He seized control over the imperial capitalists and the reactionaries in his country. And he was able to start China on the path of redemption and redemption from their 100 years of shame. That's what they say. Because remember, you got to judge post-revolutionary governments by their pre-revolutionary conditions. You have to ask yourself, if you are a serious person, you have to ask yourself, what was life like for the Chinese in the 1930s before they had their revolution? And then you would compare that to what life is like today, or what life was like under Mao. Did he improve? And not he, but the movement of which he is ascribed the leader of. Did they improve the lives of most people? Yes, they did. The same happened for Cuba. The same happened for Vietnam. The same happened for North Korea. The same happened everywhere it's tried. The same happened for the Soviet Union, for Russia. Everywhere that it's tried, socialism is smashingly successful, because all it really means, you guys, is that indigenous people that live on that land, in that territory, they benefit, they reappropriate their land resources and labor. It's the fruits of the labor of that country. The national income of that country that country creates by its working class goes back to those people. That is not something so radical to believe, You have a principal contradiction happening out right now. It's imperial invasion versus national resistance, and in the countries where these people are able to resist foreign invasion, they're a smashing success. And the flip side of that is, if socialism didn't work, if socialism wasn't feasible, if socialism simply self-destructed like the capitalist class likes to have us believe, then why do the capitalists fear it so much? Why do we spend up to trillions of dollars at this point in the post-World War II era fighting socialism tooth and nail? Why have we adopted an approach of rollback strategy? Why did we need to seemingly fight every socialist development around the world that sprang up? Why was it so important to do what Henry Kissinger called the domino theory? Why was it so important to do what Henry Kissinger feared was the spread of what he called the germ of socialism? Like it was this sort of like Nazi rhetoric, like equating communists and communism and socialism as germs, viruses. The virus of communism would spread, doesn't matter where it started. It had to be stomped out. It could not give any inspiration to other victims of imperialism that it was worth it to try to fight against American capital accumulation, but we've done a lot to try to stop something that doesn't work inherently, supposedly. So that's pretty strange. On one hand, we're expected to believe that socialism is the most ineffectual thing, a laughing stock. And on the other hand, we're supposed to believe that we should give all of our money to fight socialism. So riddle me this. Yes, the people say capitalists love socialism. You know, it's sort of true if you think of socialism not by its literal definition, but by the 20th and 21st century interpretation of socialism, which has come to mean colloquially that socialism is just when the government does things. When the government helps out the poor majority, that's considered socialism, even though that's not socialism, because socialism doesn't have to do with the politics. Socialism has to do with the economy. That's what no Elon Musk or Peter Thiel of the world will tell you. They always want to talk about the political superstructure. They don't want to talk about the economy. But socialism is here to democratize the economy, democratize the mode of production, the prevailing mode of production, which is privately owned but is publicly operated. And that contradiction is hypocritical. It's injustice. Things that are publicly operated should be publicly owned. Things that affect public life should be publicly decided upon. These decisions that affect public life and public communities should be held accountable by the public. That's right. Socialism equals no private property, and we don't mean personal property. When we say private property, we mean private property. Private property could be a fracking gas plant. It could be a power grid. It could be the railroads. It's public infrastructure. Why? That's private property? Why? Why isn't that public property? It's for public consumption. It's publicly operated. Shouldn't it be publicly controlled? Shouldn't those that work be afforded the fruits of their labor? And we always have one in every crowd. Look at, I want you guys to look long and hard at not really, but it's already passed, but Art Sony's comment, Karl Marx was a Jew from Germany who invented socialism. Communism is a European invention now used by China. Weird. Nothing about Judaism has anything to do with communism and socialism, okay? And Karl Marx did not invent socialism. Socialism is a working class tradition. It is born out of the class that it comes from. Karl Marx observed dialectical materialism. He observed the laws of nature that operate on a societal scale. He didn't invent anything. It's like saying Newton invented gravity. No, Newton observed gravity. Karl Marx observed socialism. Karl Marx observed dialectical materialism, which is to say that quantitative changes produce a qualitative shift, and that every object, including societies themselves, contain within them contradictions. And it is contradictions that drive their development and give them a lifespan. In fact, things wouldn't be alive if they didn't contain within them contradictions that drive their development. Exactly. Communism was made by Jews. Oh, base Jews then. Yeah. Think about Albert Einstein. Oh, it's like somebody saying, hey, E equals MC squared, and that was observed by Albert Einstein. And then somebody comes along and says, well, Albert Einstein was Jewish. Think about that. How idiotic that is to even entertain. I didn't see your super chat, Babak, but what was it? I'm sorry if that's the case. Mao came to power by American weapons and money of the Wall Street. Certainly, because Mao became the antidote of American weapons and money of the Wall Street. That is what Wall Street produces in the third world revolutionaries like Chairman Mao Zedong. But it's a bit like saying, if we take your point at face value, it's a bit like saying, well, Lenin re-entered the Soviet Union on a German train. He was paid off by the Germans to go back into Soviet Union. Well, thank you, Sophia, for acknowledging, political realism. And thank you for being a good Marxist and understanding that the principal contradiction, and that at all times there's always one principal contradiction. There's many subordinate secondary contradictions. And the understanding is that Lenin had to use funds in a world dominated by imperial capitalism. Lenin had to be paid off by some German capitalists for their own political reasons, for him to be returned to Soviet Union, where he could carry out a successful revolution and institute state socialism to rival imperial capitalism. Then methinks that you've lost the forest for the trees. That's right, Steak. Thank you. We funded the nationalists of China, the people who Mao fought and defeated. Chiang Kai-shek, that's right, was basically a United States vassal. You can't ask who is the best ideology for humanity, because ideology is not a who. Ideology is not a person. You could say, what is the best ideology for humanity? I think the best ideology for humanity is socialism, because we understand that above everything else, people have to eat. If you want to be anything in this world, you have to eat food first. You have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. The most principal one is the need for food, water, and shelter to survive in the world, right? And socialism accounts for people over profits, and it ultimately affords the most people the broadest possible capacity for human freedom and liberty and all these values that we love to espouse in capitalism but don't ever come through with. We're talking about an ideology for humanity. We have to accept an ideology that affords humanity the material needs to be humans, to be humanity. Because without those material things, no one can have humanity. Humanity doesn't exist, and that's just materialism for you.